Says he'll establish a national standard on police use of force. It's his first concrete proposal to address more than 2 weeks of protests over police brutality and racism, ignited by the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody last month. Speaking at a roundtable discussion in Dallas, Texas, Trump gave a few details of the executive order, but said it will also encourage programs allowing social workers to work more closely with law enforcement. The president admitted that there may be some, quote, bad apples, but vowed to take care of our police and increase training and equipment. He then slammed his political opponents for branding law enforcement as the problem.
We have to work together to confront bigotry and prejudice wherever they appear, but we'll make no progress and heal no wounds by falsely labeling tens of millions of decent Americans as racist or bigots. We have to get everybody together. We have to be in the same path, I think, Pastor. If we don't do that, we have problems, and we'll do that. We'll do it. I think we're going to do it very easily. It'll go quickly, and it'll go very easily.
Well, some local and state authorities in the US have already started to introduce police reforms. And in Washington, D.C., House Democrats are pushing for stronger oversight at the national level. Oliver Whitfield-Miocic tells us more.
18 days of protests, anger and outrage are leading to changes in US policing. Council officials in Minneapolis, the city where George Floyd was living, have vowed to redirect funding from the authorities. Instead, money could be spent on mental health services and community programs.
Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it.
Similar moves are also being planned in Los Angeles as well as New York.
We will be moving funding from the NYPD to youth initiatives and social services.
US President Donald Trump has dismissed the plans, even though he doesn't control how police forces are financed.
There won't be defunding, there won't be dismantling of our police, and there's not going to be any disbanding of our police. Our police have been letting us live in peace.
What seems certain to happen is a major re-evaluation of how officers engage with black and minority ethnic communities. At least 7 US cities have banned the use of chokeholds, the suffocating restraint method which George Floyd endured. The NYPD had already outlawed the practice in 1993, but now lawmakers want aggravated strangulation by the police to be a crime. Democrats in the House of Representatives want the maneuver to be banned nationwide as part of the Justice in Policing Act. The bill would place stronger oversight on the police and reserve the use of deadly force only as a last resort, although it's unlikely Republicans will support the legislation in the Senate. Oliver Whitfield-Miocic, Euronews.
Let's go to Washington, D.C. to speak to our reporter Colin Campbell, who's there for us. Colin, so we've heard there that President Trump, sort of 2 weeks after these protests really started to ignite, not just in the US, but also across the world, has put forward a proposal to address the outcry over police brutality and racism. The details are a little bit scant, so tell us what the president has actually proposed.
Well, what the president wants to do is put together an executive order which answers the calls of demilitarization of police or de-escalation when they are answering a call. The president says that this executive order will emphasize professionalism and courtesy when answering a call, and of course not trying to use excessive force or only using excessive force when necessary. He also says that the executive order will also allocate some funding to social services. Those are those calls that police answer that may be more adeptly answered by another agency. Issues like homelessness, domestic violence, and other issues dealing with mental illness, they are thinking that, or at least the White House is thinking, will be better answered by services that specifically deal with those types of problems rather than police answering the call. One of those caveats was people were reminded by with George Harrison. This was a man who died because he had a screwdriver in his hand. His mother is the one who called the police because he was having an episode. When police answered the call, he made a sudden move towards the police and he was shot and killed. Of course, the mother was outraged that police had killed him, But this is a reminder that police may not be the most adept to answer every call that they actually get dispatched to. And I think the president said that he wanted to address this in his executive order.
Now, we all remember the photo opportunity that President Trump had last week holding up the Bible stood outside a church. There's been some criticism of it. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has publicly apologised for participating in it. But also the Secretary of Defence has distanced himself now from the president's suggestion of using armed forces against protesters. How significant is it, Colin, that the Pentagon isn't backing the president on this issue?
I think this is very significant. What this shows is a cleave behind what members of the Department of Defense are thinking and what the president himself. He's often been criticized as thinking that everyone who is within the government structure works for him and not really for the people of America. And what military leaders are showing by their discouragement of the president's actions and disappointment in how they proceeded is that they are working for the people of the country and not for the president of the United States. And so therefore we probably will see more military members doing this as well.
Colin Campbell.